And welcome to another episode of Tapcaf Transmissions. I am one of your lovely hosts, Justin EckhartsLadder. What would be a good last name? Star Wars. That's my last name.
Wow.
Joined by my other lovely host of Tapcaf Transmissions, Corey Loses. It's been a while. It's been how long since our beginning, or since a proper Tapcaf episode, I guess?
Well, are you counting the
2 weeks?
Mandalorian episodes as proper Tapcaf? Because it's been a long time since
Yeah.
the pre-Mandalorian ones.
Yeah.
I've
So-
forgotten how to read books.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing when you rely on Star Wars for all of your entertainment, all of your worldview, like we do, of course. When we take a break, it's just our brains start to atrophy, which I think helps explain this introduction. But we're here with a very fun episode today that we've been kind of promising for a while. It's the mailbag episode. So we've got like 3 months, I think, worth of emails to cover. All the way back from, when was Jeff's email, Corey? Do you know? October,
I think it
right?
was like the end of September, maybe end of October. Somewhere between September and
Okay.
October.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think some of the last book episodes we did for the Young Jedi Knight stuff, we didn't answer questions in that because we'd be
Mm-hmm.
getting...
You'd be
we
like,
thought
well-
we'd be getting to this like the week before you had
Yeah.
your daughter, so...
Yeah. We all know how that worked out. Anyway, before we begin, though, we have some, dare I say, shocking news from probably one of the most important and active parts of the fandom. And do you want to read out the email we just got, Corey? Because I think it kind of segues nice.
The one that we just got? Or...
Yeah, just got.
So yeah, we have our first question that we're getting to here is from Tino, who says, "Hey Corey, hey Eck, I've been a long time fan of the podcast, but could you explain the Akbar X Winter ship for me again? I'm very out of the loop. Great podcast. Hope you keep the tangents up." We have breaking, exciting news on this front, guys. I don't think you understand just how I've known Eck for a while now. I'd say we're borderline friends almost at this point. And I don't know that I've ever heard you quite this excited about anything.
No, I mean, this is like almost up there with seeing my kids for the first time. But as a bit of background, in the Jedi Academy trilogy, there's some sparks flying between Admiral Akbar, who of course is Admiral Akbar, and Winter, who's basically the childhood friend and personal assistant of Princess Leia. She would go on to date and marry Tycho Selku, famous Rogue Squadron pilot, and I think they would maybe have some kiddies. I don't remember exactly. But I don't know, we just felt like there was something there. Like there's parts where like she seems interested. She's really happy to see him on a lot of occasions.
She's with him almost all the time when he's like when he's getting back into the military in the NJO. Winter's there with him. She kind of becomes his personal assistant after Leia doesn't need her to raise her children anymore. So,
But it was kind of a fan theory based on some stuff that we had read. But
yeah, it started off as a joke, but then we've kept digging. We've kept picking at that scab.
Unironically something we believe in now.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to put this on the screen so you guys can see this. Just to see that I'm not fucking around here. We have a quote from the Essential Guide to Characters. Now, don't go to the trash new Essential Guide. That's censored, very heavily censored. You guys know how that goes. I'm just going to read this quote for you guys. After careful consideration, Leia and Han decided that Anakin would be just as safe on Coruscant with them. Shortly thereafter, Winter accompanied Admiral Akbar to the planet Vortex for the reopening of the Cathedral of the Winds. She expressed her happiness that Akbar had returned to the Alliance. He, in turn, expressed his own pleasure that Winter was no longer exiled on Anoth. And this is the very, very interesting part.
Hold on, before we get to that, wasn't during that series, wasn't Akbar with Winter a bit alone on Anoth as well? And he was
when he's visiting. Well, Anakin's there, but
yeah,
Anakin ain't
visiting
no snitch.
Anakin. But yeah,
yeah.
So,
Let's not keep the people hanging. Anyways, the next paragraph is the really juicy one.
keep the people.
The white-haired beauty and Akbar enjoyed each other's company a lot over the years, both in their tasks for building the New Republic and in private.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you go. Like,
it's been confirmed. It's been confirmed. Like that's confirmation in the exact same Basically the exact same passage is in actually not basically, it's the exact same passage is in Akbar's section. So there's love there, obviously, between Winter and here I'll see if I can show you guys what she looks. It's gonna be hard because I'm. Nah, it's not gonna
Are
really
you getting
show.
that picture?
No, I was trying to move my thing so I could show the picture of Winter in the book, but yeah, we've confirmed it, and it's just I think it's like when you discover something, like when you're writing an essay, you find that one paragraph you needed to like support your thesis or whatever else, and this is what I feel like, but instead of it just being like something boring like an essay, it's like kind of my life's work in a way. But as I said,
I will remind you that you have 2 kids.
yeah, well, I said what I said. But anyway, you can't go to the new essential guide for this because it's been censored.
Winter is barely even mentioned in that one at all.
Yeah.
She's mentioned in 2 sentences of Tycho's, saying that there's one point where it says they met, and there's one point where it says they got married.
Her entry has been removed in multiple senses of the word.
Tycho spends all of his time with Wedge. Like, he's never around Winter. He's just hanging out with Wedge all the time. So, they're like, Winter had some needs that weren't being fulfilled, and Akbar was able to satisfy those needs. This is a judgment-free zone.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is Star Wars after all. It's not the first interspecies relationship we've ran into. With that being said, I think we should get into the real, get rid of the jokes. And our first unanswered email actually comes from Jeff, who says, "What is the horniest, most sexual Star Wars book you've read in your entire life?"
I feel like I know what your answer is to this, although I haven't read this book yet.
What do you think my answer is?
I think you're going to say Lost Stars.
Yes, definitely. I completely forgot about that, but 100%.
Because that was when we had Alex on for the Alphabet Squadron book, when we were talking about future stuff we'd be covering. I seem to remember both of you going pretty heavy on that.
Yeah. No, like Lost Stars is legitimately like a horny Star Wars book. It's also good, like that notwithstanding, or because of that, depending on your perspective. But yeah. What about you, Corey?
I feel like whichever book where Gavin is starting to
Jaina.
try to get with what? No, not Gavin and Jaina.
Gavin, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking of
Jag?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about Corin's, like the intersection of Corin's old sex stories and I guess iJedi, because that's where you get like the most Corin rating women. That's when you get like peak stack polls.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's probably up there for me as well. Corin he's just pure masculine energy. It's hard to contain that. So any book that he's in is, Well, let's continue. We have Javier, a frequent emailer, I'd say. He asks about the alternate universe where George never sold Star Wars to Disney. Do we think that there would have been a live action adaptation of Legacy of the Force or Fate of the Jedi? No. George was interested in telling his own stories, and he famously was not a fan of
other than Darth Talon. Darth Talon would be the only one that would have made it. Which page is this one on? Which direction are you going?
This is email 53. I was going.
Okay, so you're on the second page. Cool. I mean, what I actually meant was that we have a very good system for this. We're very.
Am I not doing it right?
No, you are.
Okay.
There's no wrong way to do this, Justin. I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page as you. But yeah, I think the chances of us getting, like, there was never any chance that the sequel trilogy that George was going to make would have been what we got in Legends
related.
Any sequel trilogy we got was going to be something that would have resulted in either the split we did get between like Legends and New Canon, or at least something similar, or like in my opinion, the worst situation would have been like trying to keep like part of it and then put this new trilogy in that overwrites parts of it, but then they still continue telling some of those stories. I feel like the bigger separation is better there, and just have that be its own story, have this be its own story. Maybe someday we'll get like other stuff like the Marvel Star Wars 109, is it?
Yeah.
That
it'd be 109.
continued, that was like still set in Legends.
Well, 108 was the one that came out. If they made another one, it'd be 109.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I really doubt we're gonna get anything set between like Crucible and Legacy Comics. I'd love that.
Yeah, me
but
too.
I don't think there was ever any chance that it was gonna be NJO or Fate of the Jedi or Legacy of the Force that got turned into movies. Or Dark Nest. It was definitely not gonna be Dark Nest.
I mean, they could have done what they did with the prequels, where it's like it's kind of the EU's job to make it work. But that probably would have been messy.
Well,
thank you.
Look at how bad it was with the Clone Wars, in all the stuff that was said in the like post Endor stuff that we did have, and then the prequels came in, and the idea of the Clone Wars was entirely different. So it would have been even worse if there were actually stories set in that period that were being overwritten, rather than just references that kind of get pushed off to the side. Like, oh no, we know it wasn't the clones fighting the Republic, fighting the Jedi, fighting the Empire. So it would have been a mess.
Yep. Fair enough. Next up, we have frequent emailer Joel. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get all your emails, Joel, because there's a lot of them from you in here. But this one's pretty interesting. What's the distinguishable difference between an Imperial Warlord and factions like the First Order in Canon and the Remnant in Legends? Is it because the Warlords are based around individuals within the First Order, and the Imperial Remnant have more institutional legality to it? Curious to hear your take on this. Well, it's like we don't really know a whole lot about what real Warlord factions look like in Legends. Like, we haven't seen too many based far off from like the Battle of Jakku. I guess the Imperial Remnant itself had a bit of legitimacy, which I think is like kind of one of the key factors. Like, various warlord groups have like had like different levels of legitimacy, where some were like you could kind of trace a direct line to the Empire, like whether you had Moffs there, or like whether the technical secession could be traced, whereas others were just like some Imperial warlord took all the ships he had and decided it'd be epic to fight the New Republic. But like in effect, they're all the same. They're all just enemies of the New Republic.
Yeah, and like if you ask the New Republic at any point, or if you ask Mon Mothma at any point, the Empire was never a legitimate faction. Like, that was the Rebels' line of reasoning the entire time. Yep. So even the Empire itself wouldn't have been legitimate. Essentially, legitimacy comes from your ability to actually act on the power you are claiming. And for a lot of the warlords, that was non-existent. The institutional strength didn't go out much beyond them as a person. So from a political science standpoint, they were less legitimate, whereas the Imperial Remnant, so like the Empire under Pelion or under the Moff Council, would probably have had a bit more of that. But the fact that Palpatine dying split it up so much kind of shows that the actual institutional strength of the Empire wasn't that strong, or as strong as they would have liked to pretend. It was just one strong man, and then kind of all built on that.
The Remnant was the only one with any sort of longevity as well, because like most of the warlord factions were like under three years or so. So
yeah, or they'd have like a couple planets after that.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, next email comes from Hans, who said he recently bought the Thrawn duology. Are there any Star Wars books I'd read before? This is an interesting one. This is one that he says he's read the Thrawn trilogy, the X-Wing novels, Truce of Bakura, which he didn't enjoy. I called him an incel on stream when I played against you guys in Squadrons. Yeah, that does sound right. Do you want to answer this one? I feel like I'm kind of taking a lot of these.
I'm still just stuck on the incel thing. Before the Hand of Thrawn duology, so I would say, like, if you've read the Thrawn trilogy, the thing about a lot of Timothy Zahn stories is that you don't really need to know too much about the other books in Star Wars to read them. So, which in some ways can be a good thing, because you don't have that same burden of knowledge. But it does mean that they're typically less connected to a lot of the other stuff other than what other authors will bring in from Zahn. So you're pretty much safe going from the Thrawn trilogy directly into the Hand of Thrawn duology, and you'll be fine.
The way I see it is that the Thrawn trilogy and the duology are based on an in-universe chronology anyway, kind of like the book. Well, not in-universe, release era chronology, I should say.
Yeah.
The bookends of the Bantam era. So if you're going through the Bantam books and you don't enjoy it, then yeah, if you read the Thrawn trilogy and the Thrawn duology, you've captured most of the really big things that you'll need. But for me, I enjoy the Bantam era, so it's like it's kind of bittersweet to read the Thrawn duology because it's it's the end of that. So
Yeah.
if you're not, I'd read a few more books. What are some Bantam books you'd recommend besides X-Wing novels and Thrawn trilogy set in the New Republic era?
I mean, I would say Courtship, but if you don't like Truce at Bakura, there probably is some of the same stuff you don't like in Truce at Bakura that's in Courtship as well.
Truce at Bakura is pretty damn boring, though.
That is true. Truce at Bakura is one of the more boring
and
ones.
like,
Yeah, I guess if any scene I think of from Truce at Bakura is like one of 3 dinner scenes.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah, that's fair.
So maybe in the wood cabin for a while.
Yeah, if your problem with Truce at Bakura was that it was boring, then Courtship is probably still fine. If it was more like tonal or about being like fantasy versus sci-fi, well, I guess like Truce at Bakura is a bit farther towards
Courtship's
that.
even.
Yeah.
So, I guess for other books that I would recommend in the era, probably the Jedi Academy trilogy is pretty important.
I don't think that's good.
You can also just read iJedi, really.
I'd
recommend
iJedi. Don't read just read iJedi and don't read Jedi Academy.
I thought you were gonna say don't read iJedi, and I was gonna be very surprised.
No, if you are going to read Jedi Academy trilogy, read Jedi Academy trilogy first, then read iJedi. If you read it the other way around, it just honestly, you're going from a better. Yeah, I think that might be part of why I was so down on the Jedi Academy trilogy. It's because all the good parts of it I just read written slightly better in iJedi, and then went into the Jedi Academy trilogy. But I guess the benefit of the Jedi Academy trilogy is that you do get this direct interaction with the Winter and Akbar storyline. So
yes, very important. We have kind of an associated question from Harry, who's saying he's wondering whether it's time for him to start Vector Prime and / NJO yet. He said he's read the Thrawn trilogy, Dark Empire, Jedi Academy trilogy, Thrawn duology. So it's kind of the same thing. I'll just answer this question quickly. It's kind of the same thing because, yeah, you'll know what's going to happen or you'll have a good understanding when you start NJO. That being said, you will miss some references, because the NJO really takes parts of the Bantam era and focuses on it for an arc. Like there'll be an arc where, the Corellian trilogy is interesting. So what I would say, if you're really against spending all the time reading them, which I understand, you can pick up the audiobooks and they're very, very short. They're 3 hours long, which kind of sucks if you just want to read the books. But if you're trying to skip through to get to NJO, that's a really good way to do it.
Yeah. And if you are reading NJO, that can be a really big time investment too. It is 19 books.
Yes.
I would even say read Vector Prime so you kind of know what's starting off there. Maybe Vector Prime and then Dark Tide. And then you can almost just go to the different kind of sections, because the way it was written is you have some standalone books, some duologies, and some trilogies. And you can kind of just pick the ones that seem appealing to you or the authors that seem appealing to you if you don't plan on reading all of them. Try to, if you can do it and you want to do it, definitely. I really enjoy the whole thing, and I think there's a lot you can get out of reading the whole thing in order. But if for some reason you don't have time to read 19 Star Wars novels, then definitely read Vector Prime, definitely read Dark Tide, definitely read Star by Star, Destiny's Way, Unifying Force, and Final Prophecy. Or flip those last two. But read those ones, and then if you can slot in some other ones, do it that seem like they might be interesting to you. I really even if you don't read any of the other ones, I think you can read the Enemy Lines duology by Aaron Alston. So that's Rebel Stand and Rebel Dream. Because I think that some of the better, just focusing on one battle, you don't even necessarily need the rest of the context. It's still enjoyable.
Yep, Totally agree. Isn't that when they go to Coruscant too?
Yeah, that's Luke's mission to Coruscant. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's where Lord Nyax is.
Yeah.
Tall man.
And the ODST drop into Coruscant. It's pretty epic. Anyway, next email is from Cody. This is what I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, Corey. We've kind of talked about this a bit in the Mando episodes too, but we're starting to get into Mando emails because we moved from books to Mando. What would you think of the Mandalorian switching focus and era to other Mandos like Boba's rise to fame or the High Republic era? I've always secretly hoped to be a bounty hunter adaptation where we see Django at work.
So, well, we are going to get the book of Boba Fett. So we will see at least that, though it won't be in a different time period. I feel like doing that within like the same style as the Mandalorian wouldn't necessarily be playing to its strengths, but I think getting like something about whatever the new canon version of the Mandalorian Wars are going to be, that would be nice. Yeah. But
I want the Mando to talk. I like the character of the Mando a lot. I think there's still more interesting stories to be told there. So
yeah.
Okay, that's an important policy change. Okay, this is a spam email. Okay, so we got one from Patrick, who's not trying to sell us a website, which is nice. What did you guys think of the design in the opening scene of the episode where Mayfeld is in the prison colony? He's referring to I guess that's the second last, that's chapter 15. I thought it was very awesome and a cool look into the Star Wars universe. And he also is wondering, what do we think the Taika Waititi movie will be about and what will it be like? And he says also correctly, thanks for putting out a Star Wars podcast, as yours is the only one I can find. That's the only one that exists. So thank you for mentioning as much. I thought that was a really cool scene. That it kind of, for me personally, like that's why Mando's so good, because they put an unnecessary amount of work into just like one scene like that, because that's actually a practical set, I believe. So that was cool. What do you think about the Taika movie?
Well, that's actually one of the things that I'm most looking forward to right now is the Taika movie. And we don't really know anything about it yet, but I just enjoy almost everything he does. So that alone is like, I want this. But we'll see what it ends up being. I'm sure it'll piss a lot of people off. But
yeah, I'm down for something of a different style. As long as I like Solo was a different style, and I liked the movie, but I didn't like the visual style of that movie because it looked like they filmed something that was good and then turned the brightness way down. But yeah, also thank you again, guys. I appreciate the super chats. If there's time at the end, I'll get to them, but I'll also, if you do super chat and I don't get a chance, feel free to email me and I will send you a personalized email in response. So we got one from George now, who's got also Corey. Do you want to read some of these, or do you want me to? Just
I've been trying to keep track of where you're going, and
I'm literally just clicking next email like that.
Okay, so I think that's why I kind of lost you on some of them, because for some reason I think we skipped up a bunch. But I'm on this one now from George.
Okay.
This is the one with the Charlie feedback.
Yes.
Okay. So George says, hi there, just wanted to give you some feedback on Charlie and also some thoughts on Mandalorian and the Acolyte. Firstly, I would like to say I very much enjoy Charlie in streams and discussions, as he has some different insights. He seems to like nuanced characters and storytelling. He also is a big fan of Pink Stitch. I don't know if everyone's aware of that.
Yeah,
he may be insane,
characters
but he's great. Secondly, I think the Mandalorian could go in so many different ways, and that's exciting. I would like to see Gideon get defeated, and I honestly would like it if it's Grogu that gets the finishing blow as karma, but I don't know. Finally, I'm actually rather intrigued by the Acolyte.
Me too.
Would you be interested to see another point of view, perhaps a Sith protagonist? So this is something that I think you're typically against.
No, I'm fine with it. As long as I don't like Bane because he's a boring Sith.
Okay.
But I love Plagueis. And I like the Palpatine bits of that.
Yeah, that's fair. I think like Plagueis and KOTOR 2 are kind of the closest we get to that, and that's probably the closest I'd want to get to that. I wouldn't want something that's like trying to be like, oh, actually Sith are the good guys. It's like they're clearly not.
I mean, protagonist, like an evil protagonist is cool. I think Star Wars I think I get what you mean now. Like I think Star Wars has a very clear black and white sorry morality, where the good guys are good, and then the Sith are the ones force choking people and shooting lightning and screaming and shit. Like, so I'm not really super interested in stories that make the Sith like, oh, the Sith are good actually. I like stories where it's like Jason Solo, where he thinks he's doing good and then ends up falling to the Sith because the dark side's like that. But yeah,
Well, there's
evil
also
protagonist.
Creo where like there's points of what she's saying that are not entirely wrong, but she's like
Hmm.
actually she's definitely a villain too.
Yeah.
And like the Jedi aren't unambiguously good. They are fucking a lot of stuff up themselves, and I think that's fine. But if
Yes.
there was something that was trying to do Sith as protagonists, as if like it's like trying to vindicate what Palpatine does or whatever,
Hmm.
then I think that's not something I'd be as interested in.
Yeah.
I'm
I don't
not. I'm
think he
not a
meant
huge
like a
fan.
good protagonist,
No,
but yeah.
but I'm like even the stuff that tries to portray Palpatine as like only becoming the Emperor to stop the Yuuzhan Vong. It's like
Yeah.
no, that wasn't what he was doing. Maybe that's
Yeah.
part of what he was doing, but that
Mhm.
wasn't what he was doing.
Yeah. Also, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but next episode we will be covering. I might go and edit this in when I'm doing the audio, but next episode we will be covering book 1 of the new High Republic series, which is called Light of the Jedi, and we're working to have some special guests on. So you guys have till next Thursday, most likely, to read that book. Uh, yeah, I won't go. We won't go into any of our thoughts now because
Yeah.
it's just came out. But yeah, thank you very much, George, for that question. It was a very interesting one. Oh, this is a very interesting email from Carlos from Pod Status, who brings the very, very good news that we are now in position 4 in the category of TV and films in Panama. Thank you.
And number 98 in the category of TV and film in Germany. But that makes us
We're
93 overall in
we're the
podcasts in Panama.
93rd most popular podcast in Panama. Thank you, Panama.
Yeah,
What's
Panama are doing the real work for us here.
what's a citizen from Panama called?
Is it
Panamanian?
Panamanian? Is that the demonym for it?
Thank you. Whoever you are out there, thank you. Um Another one from Joel. He kind of compares. I'll just briefly kind of skip over this one because he's kind of just bringing up a good point that the big difference between Endor and Canon or post Endor Empire and Canon and Legends is that in Legends in Canon post Endor is like early day rebellion, various cells, different level of organization. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Do you want to read this next one from Jacob, Corey?
From Jacob, we have. How do you guys feel about all the locations in Disney Star Wars being desolate fringe planets? As a fan
Oh
of Star
yeah.
Wars, I think my biggest thing down for me is the fact that Disney seems very infatuated with small settlements like the one seen in the latest episode of The Mandalorian. Yet those places are interesting, but it seems as if that's all they ever show. Jakku was a fringe desolate planet,
Mm-hmm.
Takodana was a forest world on the fringes, Octo was an untouched island world, Crate was an abandoned mining planet, etc. I want to see populated places like Coruscant, Corellia, Mon Cal, etc. So what
Yeah,
do you
no,
think?
I'm right there with him.
I think we've been that way in a lot of the visual mediums so far, but I think part of that is just the nature of like the Resistance and even the First Order in the sequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you look at
Mm-hmm.
Solo, we got live action Corellia, which didn't think we'd
Yep.
ever necessarily get, and it seems like we're gonna get a good amount of like Coruscant and Hosnian and stuff in the High Republic.
Yeah,
So
hopefully.
maybe that means in the Acolyte we'll get a bit more of like urban setting because we have a bunch of other shows coming. We have stuff coming in the maybe even in the Bad Batch. Like there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to get more. I do agree that it is indexed a bit away uh from like urban settings than I'd like because I want to see like different
Mm-hmm.
types of architecture and all that stuff because that's where they can really make everything look super different. But I think
Mm-hmm.
with the kind of story the Mandalorian was telling, in particular, other than Tython, I was pretty happy with all the environments. Like we got the discount Mon Cal, but uh, for the most part, it's been one of the better parts of that show. So
Yeah. And now it seems like Mando's kind of earned this favor back with the New Republic based on we hear Cara Dune talking about him getting a reward. So I assume he's probably in their good books now. So maybe maybe we'll get to see some interesting places, especially in season 3, because he can travel to Coruscant now. I mean, this is my assumption. It seems like the New Republic may have even sanctioned his mission against Gideon, so maybe we'll see him travel to the core worlds, or Corellia or wherever else. But yeah. Okay. Next question is from Jared, who asked about Mace Windu. He's saying he's enjoying the nostalgia of going through the old Legends books. I know you guys touched briefly about the theory of Windu surviving the podcast. I'd always thought that Palpatine killed him before he's tossed out the window. I thought this was obvious. I mean, that's I never thought that Palpatine killed him before he threw him out the window, but it's certainly possible. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. There's always the issue, when someone doesn't actually die in Star Wars, like they're supposed to die. But it's after the whole, just every character who's returned from the death, especially from falling, makes Mace Windu, I guess, slightly more possible to be alive. But for me, it's Mace Windu dying is a pretty important part of Anakin's character arc. So I wouldn't want to remove that. I mean, he did also take a lot of lightning, but I don't think that itself would have killed him.
No, like I think the biggest thing that's behind the Mace Windu is alive stuff is that Samuel L. Jackson would absolutely play him again. And well, I do think that would be cool. I don't think that necessarily works. So as much as I'd enjoy seeing that, maybe even like Force Ghost Mace Windu, I'd be down for that at some point. But I don't think... I think that's like the main reason that he's said to be alive, just because Samuel L. Jackson would jump at the chance to play him again. Not jump out a window, but...
Yeah, I don't think there's any actual... Like, I've never seen any actual evidence that convinced me. I've seen, like, explanations for why it could happen that, basically exactly like that. Like, Mace Windu could be alive because you didn't see him die, and people return from death in Star Wars all the time. And yes, that is true, but that applies to a dozen characters, not just Mace Windu.
And I almost universally dislike when that happens. So
yeah, and I also just don't see any reason for Mace Windu to come back, because like thematically, what does Mace Windu returning really bring to Star Wars? Like, for me, the best thing about Mace Windu is he's kind of the prototypical dickhead Jedi from the prequel era.
Yeah.
It's like him coming back. Why, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you bring Palpatine back because he's the big bad villain. And I don't know, Mace is just like, he's just, I don't think there's much left in his story that's compelling. But yeah.
Yeah. So our next question comes from Brian, who we touched on this a little bit about books we'd recommend, but this is a slightly different spin on it. So he says, I know you've answered a similar question before on the podcast, but I couldn't remember what your answer was, and maybe your perspective have changed. What books would you recommend people start on in Legends and Canon? So maybe if we each just want to give one or two quickly, because we did kind of touch on that with the other stuff.
I mean, it depends. If they want more story, I'm always Heir to the Empire, because I think it's the one that best captures the feel. If they just want more context, then I think probably the Return of the Jedi novel is a really good one for that.
Yeah, like as far as getting into Legends or new canon stuff, I do think the Thrawn trilogy is probably the best place for people to do it. If you want to get in chronologically, obviously Truce at Bakura, but if you're not already committed, then start with the Thrawn trilogy. If you are...
What about for canon, would you say?
For new canon, like I would even say Alphabet Squadron, potentially.
Yeah.
Especially if it's someone getting into Star Wars. I feel like
and you got two books and
Alphabet Squadron,
Lost Stars is maybe so readable.
Yeah.
So good.
And maybe even the first Thrawn book, like the first new canon Thrawn book. I didn't like Alliances or Treason as much, but like I think they more suffer from like not being able to go anywhere new with him, because you kind of already know what's going to happen with Rebels, and maybe it's even better if you just don't know what happens in Rebels. So
definitely. So the next one's from Cody. I'm not gonna. No, I don't. I think we talked about this on the podcast. Neither of us think that Ben will kill Grogu.
No.
So thank you for the email. One from Patrick. What do you think of the new canon demise of Bib Fortuna? I was rather disappointed. He didn't not have his brain removed, placed in the spider droid like he did in Legends. That's the Bib Fortuna story in the Tales from Jabba's Palace. I wrote you guys a nice review on Apple Podcasts, so you should go check that out. I will check that out as Corey reads the next one. Thanks for being the only kids on the block that are straight enough to do the only Star Wars podcast. What did you like the not only just the Bib Fortuna stuff, but the Tales from Jabba's Palace generally?
I can never remember if I've read Tales from Jabba's Palace or if the stuff that I think of from it is from the Bounty Hunter trilogies.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to read it again. It's been so long to make sure that I actually have read it. So
fair enough. I really like that one, and the what's it called? Also, the Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina is a lot of fun, and the new canon versions of those stories are basically like from a certain point of view, and I think they're pretty fun as well.
Yeah, there's Tales from the Bounty Hunters, Tales from Jabba's Palace, Tales from the Empire, Tales from the New Republic. There's a bunch of tales you can read.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun.
Isn't Tales from the New Republic just a compendium, or is it actually? I don't think I've read that one.
I have it in paperback. I don't know if it's just like a republishing of something, but
okay. Cool. One from Justin, who says, actually, you want to read this one? I'm going to look up the podcast review.
I believe this one is primarily specific, like Mandalorian episodic stuff. So maybe because like some of this stuff, if we get to it again, it'd be more like season 3 relevant. So thank you for the email, Justin. But I think it's our fault that we kind of waited a bit too long, because some of this is like the Book of Boba. Whether it's a new show or not. But there is something here, actually, that we should probably touch on. Do you think we'll see Dark Troopers in other places when they need something to be threatening, but don't want to use hundreds of Stormtroopers?
I think we'll see Dark Troopers in the other shows of the era. Like, I think we'll probably see Dark Troopers in Ahsoka and Rangers of the New Republic.
Yeah, like they'll probably be present in those kind of like more connected things. I don't know that they'll be super widespread. So like even in Legends, the thing that happened all the time is like every bit of media made its own enemy trooper type, and that's why there's 3 million types of stormtroopers, often with the same name, doing completely different stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, it is nice in that regard that like we're seeing this like cohesion, because it's getting when you have a gazillion elite stormtrooper units, it's just kind of boring.
Yeah.
Like, this one is really elite, trust me.
And this one's just as elite, but it has a red stripe.
So the next email is from Badger Whacker, who I think wanted explicitly his name said out loud. So there you go, Badger Whacker. He has an interesting question. He's been noticing a slightly worrying trend of people implicitly or explicitly saying that Order 66 was just desserts for a flawed Jedi Order. The use seems to be also tactically present to some degree in Legends or Canon. He thinks shortly following a peaceful resolution of the Clone Wars, there'd be some introspection for new forms or for Jedi and Jedi reforms. He acknowledges that he's too drunk to edit this down, so it's a wall of text. Anyway, what are your just general thoughts on that? And obviously, no order deserves to be genocided or wiped out.
No,
did you feel like that's something that's been implicit or explicit in canon or Legends?
Like, kind of, it's either the subtext or the explicit text of the prequel trilogy that like the Jedi Order has kind of stagnated and become corrupt in different ways. I don't think it's necessarily ever stated in universe, other than from like Plagueis or Palpatine, that they needed to be wiped out. And I would agree that the Jedi Order was like there were signs that it was heading this direction without saying that they deserved it or anything like that. Like there were significant institutional problems. They were blind to how to deal with Anakin's problem in particular. And like I think that is typically what's done in universe, rather than necessarily saying they deserved it, because like a lot of this stuff is about like people still respect the Jedi. They still need a Jedi to come help them in some way. But like in Last Jedi, I think the way Yoda talks about this is probably one of the most accurate ways to do it. Is like, we kind of fucked up. The order can end. That doesn't mean we deserve, or the order can end in the way that it was, but it doesn't necessarily mean we all should have been killed. They definitely needed to reform. Doesn't mean they deserved what they got, or that's the best thing to have happened to them. But like, it was definitely, there were definitely a lot of flaws with it that needed to be addressed in some way, and that they weren't on the path of addressing.
Yeah, for me, it's like, did they deserve it? No, but is it surprising? Also, not really. I think that's like kind of the larger takeaway that I get. Thank you very much for the interesting email, though, Badger. One from Wobble who says, "Do you think there's a chance an old/High Republic movie would come out?" I mean, we got a TV show, right? So that's I think anything's possible if the books are popular. We'll have a much better idea in a year or so.
Yeah, with the Acolyte as well, when that starts going on, seeing how people respond to that, then maybe there'll be something else put in there. So
I will say they released their kind of plan for the different phases of the High Republic, and they're really putting a lot of effort into this. Like phase 1 goes all the way to, I think, 2023, and there's already 3 phases announced. This is like probably the next decade or so we'll have stories in this era. So I would not be surprised to see an eventual movie come. Of what a theatrical movie, hard to say, but I mean they can do a lot more with now that they've got Disney Plus and a lot more flexibility.
Maybe even a musical.
Yeah, well, let's hope.
Next question we have is from Joel, who says, with the announcement of a special event series that will tie in all the various Mandalorian tie-in shows, do you think that what is happening is a possible canonized Thrawn trilogy, or at least Thrawn campaign? So basically we have like the Ahsoka series doing that, we have the Mandalorian, we have Rangers of the New Republic, and we do know that like what Ahsoka's doing is looking for Thrawn. So what are your thoughts on that, Justin?
Yeah, I think like I see this a lot, like probably more than any other idea when people talk about this big multi-story arc. I don't know if it's wishful thinking. If you had asked me before the season of The Mandalorian, I would have said no, but it does kind of seem that way. And if you look at the timeline, there's really nothing between now and honestly pretty much the sequel trilogy. Even on books, there's one, I think, book or comic between now and 28 ABY. So yeah, I do think it's possible, maybe even likely, that Thrawn is going to have his big moment to shine and be a big bad or whatever for at least a major campaign or something. What about you, though?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of room for that, and it seems to be the direction we're heading in. Like, there's going to be something with Thrawn, and it seems like there's also probably going to be some stuff with the Chiss, whether those are going to be connected or not to the Empire. That's kind of still up in the air, but I think, like, we know the New Republic still has a military for a while. It's not until later that they like start disbanding that, and there's a lot of time here. We're getting some military focused shows coming up in the time that the Mandalorian is set. So I think that's a really good, like, there's a really good chance of that.
Yep. Well said. We have an email from General Bricks, who's asking, where do you think Axe Wolves was, or do you think he was okay in the finale? Could he have been on the Gazanti or somewhere else? Axe Wolves is basically the other Mandalorian, the guy that's with the other 2 Mandos, like Bo-Katan, and I can't remember the name of the other one. But I believe the actor
Sasha
who
Banks
played Axe Wolves said that he had a death in the family or some other event. Unfortunately, I'm assuming he's gonna be in something again. But yeah, hard to say at this point.
Especially since it seems like Bo-Katan's group is going to be a bit more important.
Yes, exactly.
But our next email comes from Keaton, who says, what do you think Creo would think of the Yuuzhan Vong? They seem to be the end result of her philosophy. Perhaps not the specific pain aspect of their culture, but their view of life as a struggle one must personally overcome through one's own strength.
I think you're going to be a lot more poised, a lot in a better position to answer this question than me, because it's been a while since I've read NJO. I think that Creo would not be super impressed on, like, when it comes to the really religious aspects of Vong society. I think she would see them as pretty heavily manipulated, and I think she would see their because honestly, the Vong put themselves in the situation they're in through just constant destruction, and I don't think she would be super impressed with that either.
Yeah, like sure they're not part. They're this is weird, but they're not part of the Force for a lot of the NJO. But that isn't really even. That's not even quite what Creo was going for with the death of the Force. It that element of it does get closer to her idea that like she hates the Force because it's controlling everything. But the Yuuzhan Vong religion, like or within the Yuuzhan Vong culture, that is pretty much just what their gods want. And the revealed knowledge, nothing that they can do for themselves. So it's pretty antithetical to what Creo was actually going for.
Like they're trading one master for another, basically.
Yeah. Because like the thing that she was doing through all of KOTOR 2 was just giving Mitra this idea she had for freedom of choice. But like even Krea's own thing was that she was willing to sacrifice everyone else's or manipulate everyone else to do this. And it wasn't very epic. But yeah, I don't think she would have been very happy with the Vong either. She's basically Vergier, and Vergier was not happy with the Vong.
Yeah. Rohan says, after rewatching Rogue One, when they are going through the Imperial projects in Scarif, they mentioned Black Saber and also a bunch of other projects. I don't know. So some of those have been covered in like associated material. Like I think the Visual Dictionary covered some, and Catalyst, or not Catalyst, but some of the other novels probably covered some. I don't know about Black Saber in particular. I don't really have. I know one of them was like probably the what's the big cruiser with the laser on it again?
The Conqueror?
No, in canon, the remember it was released or it was announced at the same time as
the Onager. The Onager.
Yeah, the Onager. Yeah, like I imagine that could have been the Black Saber, although isn't an Onager a spear? Maybe I don't know, but
no, it's like it's basically the little catapulty things.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
It's either that or it's the the ballista. No, it's not the ballista. The Onager is the one that you can kill a lot of infantry with it in Age of Empires, so you spam them.
Okay. But yeah, so I imagine it could be any number of weapons projects. Also, this is a question we've had in the past. How do you prefer to watch the Star Wars movies? And I guess I'm going to expand this. How would you recommend it for a new viewer? What do you think, Corey? I mean, I'm always chronological release order. Or so those are two different things. I'm release order.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what Dana and I have done. I think with Dana, so over the last year or so, I've been getting my girlfriend to watch all of the Star Wars movies, much to her chagrin. But I think we did release order. So
that's what I
guess that's my recommendation then, since that's what I did. Because then, like, a lot of people will kind of watch the original trilogy and they'll be okay with that. They might not be as into the prequel trilogy if they're older, especially.
Yeah.
So starting with that, like, with kids, start with the prequel trilogy. You're probably going to be fine going with, like, chronological order. But with adults, I think there's more of an emotional
impact. Start with the
Mandalorian. Okay, you can do that as well. That would work.
But honestly, like, for real, maybe start with the Mandalorian.
No, that's fair. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got one from Gaming Central Podcast who says, since seeing the statue of Darth Nihilus on Exegol, does that confirm the Old Republic series from Legends canon will fit? I'm just going to answer that quickly. No, all that confirms is that there was a character that looked like that. Also, I don't think he even made it into the movie. Whenever something is canonized, it doesn't mean that everything associated with that character is canonized. I think we discussed this when we read one of the Thrawn books. But if I canonize Thrawn, all I'm canonizing is the fact that there is a character now in the universe named Thrawn. That doesn't mean that, Captain Pelion's canonized or the Thrawn campaign is canonized or anything associated with the characters is the same. It's basically like if you are... It's just a new story with... It's just... That's why recanonization is probably not a good word. It's because
reintroduction is probably better.
Yeah, reintroduction. It doesn't imply necessarily that things are going to stay the same. They often do because you don't want to piss the fans off, and sometimes it doesn't make sense to mess with what works. But
yeah, if there is an era that is like more likely to kind of be brought in bigger chunks, though, it probably is like the Tor and previous stuff, KOTOR even. because like Tor is still continuing to release new content, and it
Mhm.
seems like some of that's kind of like working off of other stuff as well. So that's the biggest question mark of like, does this is continuing Legends? Does it also count as canon? But I think wasn't Nihilus one of the ones that was mentioned in one of the source books already? Because I think his
I've got
name might be
no clue.
canonized again.
Got no clue.
But there were a
He
few
might have
older
been.
Sith Lords that were mentioned that way.
Yeah, like I know Revan's been technically mentioned.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Remember Darth
So-
Riven?
Revan die.
What?
Okay. Our next question is from Informal Geek. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but he's asking about the upcoming Star Wars project Supernatural Encounters. Have you heard of this, Corey?
I've heard of it. I looked it up and then I forgot what it was.
So Supernatural Encounters is basically all right. So Supernatural Encounters it started its life, it seems, as originally a licensed book, or it's like a short story from it was going to be in Star Wars Legends, and it seems like the author alongside some other people are now kind of putting it together. And I've read it. I'm kind of I don't want to insult anyone. They claim that a lot of what was going to be in the book or what is in the book now, because they're finishing it and putting it together and editing it and even getting some art put together. And that's all very cool. So I don't want to seem like I'm shitting on the people behind it. But they say that pretty much everything in the book was confirmed to come out in Legends. And they basically made the argument that it can be considered an official part of Legends. And I don't really buy a lot of that. For one, there's like explicit references to canon, which is very strange. Like the World Between Worlds, I believe, is featured. And like it's clearly stuff that was added after the fact. And some of it's very, very bizarre. Like they go into basically every strange or weird part of Star Wars. Like they fully explain everything from like the Nal to those Bedlam spirits and everything. I personally find it hard to believe that the book in that form was ever going to come out in Star Wars Legends. But it's still a fun read. That's yeah. It's I forget what the other was. I think the other one was called, because there was a kind of this is kind of a sequel to, I think it was called what was it? Cult Encounters, I think, was the one that did come out. And this was sort of going to be a follow up to that, I guess. I think, kind of to summarize my feelings, I feel like the people working on it have greatly expanded the scope of it, and are kind of treating it like that was the scope. And when in Legends, maybe it was. It's just kind of my feeling, probably not.
Yeah.
But
we did get a question in chat. I know we're going to the emails, but this is something that I did mean to bring up and wanted to talk about. Pete's asking, what do you think of the rumor of Robert Downey Jr. playing Thrawn? I'm just going to say I love Robert Downey Jr. Please no.
Yeah. Who's your pick? Do you have a pick?
I mean, a Mickelson would be fine.
Yeah.
I don't want to give my full official endorsement yet, but I just don't think Robert Downey Jr. would be a good Thrawn. Like, if you think of what Robert Downey Jr. is usually good at, like, I don't even think he necessarily looks at what I'd picture Thrawn to be, but
it's just
it doesn't feel right to me.
It could be we're thinking of the Iron Man character, but like Thrawn's like the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
My thought was, and I was flipping through my TV the other day, and one of the Marvel movies was on, and I saw Vision, the character Vision.
Paul Bettany.
I was like, Paul Bettany would actually have been a really good Thrawn. I feel like
if they hadn't used him for
Dryden Voss.
Yeah. Well, I was actually thinking, depending on the timing of it, how old he'd be. Like Charles Dance would be really good.
Charles Dance would be really good. I also said Pierce. Well, after that image came out from Star Wars Celebration, I thought Pierce Brosnan would be good. Yeah, there's always the pretty interesting, or the pretty common ones. Like everyone says, Benedict Cumberbatch, or which I think it could be fine, or make one of the Mickelsons, like you said, which I think would also be good.
Because like it seems like if we get live action Thrawn, it'll be around 10 to 15 ABY. So he's almost 70, I think.
Is he that old? Really? Wow.
Because when is he's in the like Star Wars : Thrawn : Ascendancy : Chaos : Rising.
I
He's
don't think he's that old.
he's like 20. He's in his 20s, his mid to late 20s, right?
Yeah, I guess because he'd be like,
and that's like 30 BBY, 20 to 30 BBY.
The way I think about it, how old was Anakin when he died?
He was
in his 40s, right?
Anakin was way older than 40. He was 50 to 60.
Yeah, he was fit. No, he was 50 because he. Well, hold on.
Well, it's 25 plus how old he was.
Thrawn
He's like 50.
5. Yeah. So I picture Thrawn as being 5 to 10 years older. No, he's not that old. He's only in his mid 40s because Phantom Menace is 30, 32, right? Anakin's
I guess
9,
that's 5.
41.
So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, he's like 45.
I
50.
picture Thrawn as being like, because we don't get his exact age, but just based on what we've read in the Treason Chaos Rising, whatever the fucking name of the new book was.
Well, we get an Outbound Flight as well. Like, it's the same kind of time period, as the same rough
5
age.
5 to 10 years older, I guess.
He's more than, because he's
in canon, what, though,
10
you
years
think?
Older? I think so. I think he's pretty old.
I don't know, because he's still pretty. Let's see. I'm going to see the earliest. I'm going to take a look at canon.
Pelion was already in the military for a while. With he's about the same age as Pelion, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older. I
felt like he was the same age as Pelion.
Well, Pelion isn't that old until he gets that old. He in the Thrawn trilogy, he's middle aged, and he's 90 by the time he gets shot by Tahiri.
Yeah, he's in his 90s. I don't know. I just feel like when he meets Anakin in Thrawn Treason or whichever book it is, I feel like he's not that much older than him. Like 5 years, maybe.
I don't know. I got the feeling that he was at least mid-20s by then.
Yeah, and Anakin would have been 18. Or
okay, so maybe he's younger than I'm thinking, but
I think Thrawn could be in his. I think Thrawn could be mid-50s.
He could be. I'm not putting that outside of the bounds of possibility. But then Charles Dance can't play him. And that makes me sad. So why are you doing this to me?
Yeah. I'm just trying to read if any of these other nerds have a...
Okay, so if it's set post-sequel trilogy, if Thrawn is somehow still around then, which I don't think he will be, then Charles Dance. But
yeah.
Or if him and Ezra come out of the whale aged up a little bit, then Charles Dance.
I'm just trying to think how old, because Thrawn doesn't seem that old in Rebels, and that's only a decade before his appearance in because Mando's 9 APY,
well, he looks to be about 40 if you can age
yeah, I think he's kind of ambiguously aged. I feel like he could be anywhere between 30 to 40, especially where he's
look at that hairline though.
Bruh, that's an efficiency hairline. That's not a stylistic hairline. Send us your emails on what you guys think. tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com. If Grievous didn't need to breathe, why did he have a cough? I think Grievous has lungs. Doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got some assisted stuff. I can't remember. It's hard to. I'm no expert.
George Lucas. It's because of George
biology.
Lucas.
Yeah. That's the easiest answer. We are up to the question we started at, which is now email number 41 in the inbox.
Okay, so that's cool. Want to go through some of the ones we've got now then?
Yeah,
the new ones. Okay.
I think we've got about half hour left, so we'll try
I just lost my spot. Do you want to read the next one? I'll find my spot.
All right, our next question from what we're going to call the AP period after podcast is from Chase, who says, should the Rogue Squadron movie center around the core group of Wedge, Tycho, Wes, and Hobby?
No, I don't think it will. Well, no, I don't think so. I think I'd like to see Rogue Squadron in new canon, in the modern start, in the sequel era. I think it could be cool because I like Poe as a character a lot, and I think there's no reason why Poe couldn't come back.
Yeah, it does seem like we are getting like I agree with what I think your position was, that it's going to be after the sequel trilogy, and I do think that that's a good place to have like Poe setting up stuff. Get more Poe focus on that.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a shame that what's his name died in Rise of Skywalker.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Kind of yeah, can't remember his name. Snap.
Snap Huxley.
Snack cups. Yeah, yeah, because he was a fun character. I mean, I'd like to see. Yeah, like I think Wedge as a mentor probably makes more sense at this point, because then they can actually get Dennis Lawson. Otherwise, it's fake Wedge.
Yeah, like I don't. And Dennis Lawson is not showing up again for anything Star Wars. I don't think.
I don't know. I think he'd show up for the movie. You don't think he'd show up for Rogue Squadron as a mentor?
With enough money, maybe, but he didn't seem to. I've gotten the feeling that out of everyone, other than maybe Harrison Ford, Dennis Lawson is okay with not doing anything Star Wars ever again.
They got Harrison back. I never would have guessed that they'd get Harrison back for
Well,
episode 9.
they got Harrison and they got Dennis Lawson back for episode 9.
Yeah,
But I don't know. That was just like one angry looking shot of Wedge.
And that movie was shit.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah,
But
it really was.
oh, I forgot. We're supposed to be Disney Cuck SJWs or something.
Oh, yeah,
We're not allowed to have opinions on movies.
Yeah. Oops. Anyway, should we continue? I think we agreed on. Oh, we got a question that's in the
Wait,
title.
I just want to piss everyone else off again first. I really like Last Jedi. Sorry. Okay, I wanted to make sure I pissed everyone off first. Let's go.
Do you actually really like Last Jedi?
I really like a lot of parts of it. It has some of my favorite moments.
I didn't think you really liked the movie. I thought there were.
I really like the movie as a movie, and I really like some of the specific scenes and some of the character choices, which I know is a lot of people's problem with it, but I really liked it. I didn't like the comedy parts. That was basically
all right. So just send the cuck messages to Corey.
Yeah, get rid of Canto Blight, and I like it a lot more.
You said Canto Blight when it's bite, and I think that's a funny mistake.
Well, that's my opinion.
No,
that's how I feel about Canto Blight.
Now
there's a Canto Blight upon the movie.
This is a question in the absolute mad lad put the question in the subject line. He says, have you ever wanted a bit more political and economic depth for the Clone Wars? Personally, I feel like if you get too much more depth, it just all falls apart.
Yeah. I like the stuff that comes up in source books with it, which actually does put a lot more, like it fleshes it out a lot more. I don't think we needed it in like the movies or the show, because that would just slow it down, I think, too much.
Yeah. I don't think it was well thought out enough necessarily to support that being a big plot point.
Yeah.
Just let the Separatists leave. Why couldn't the CIS just leave? I'm so happy.
Well, the Separatists were actually kind of terrible, so there's that. The Republic was terrible as well, but the Separatists tended to be slightly more terrible, so that's fun. Well, the main one is that not the smaller systems, but like the Trade Federation was objectively terrible. Yeah.
Another problem is too, it gets in the fact that Palpatine is manipulating everything.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
But like when you have these corporations that are arming themselves and are actually the strongest military and financial power in the universe, like as someone currently holding a Coke can, I don't want like Coke hiring Blackwater or X now. What is it? I don't remember what they've changed their name to at this point, but I'm not okay with that.
You mean you don't want to be killed if you don't buy your daily Coke requirement?
No.
Okay. I'll call my mercs and...
But I'll fucking drink it.
So we got one from Blaine who says, it's for X. So sorry, Corey, shut your fucking mouth for this one. If Gideon really is working for Thrawn, why would Thrawn allow Gideon to keep something as culturally significant as the Darksaber? Would Thrawn not want it for himself to study? Well, Thrawn uses holograms to study stuff, so he doesn't need the art there. Plus, I don't think he sees the Mandos as a huge threat. So, good question, though, Blaine. Yeah, I don't think he's too worried about the Mandos, and he's gonna be sitting around on a Star Destroyer bridge. When has Thrawn ever had to deal with any sort of sharp, pointy objects? Oh, wait. Dear X, why the ships in Battle of the Dreadnoughts have no shields? They do actually. If you watch the animation, you'll see that this is something that was done purposefully. You'll see that the Eclipse launches a volley of ion blasts before it fires its main cannons. So, yeah. All right, let's get a question for Corey here. He just says, we got one from Jose who says, blessing. Jose, he says, why are sequels not canon anymore? Corey,
They
you wanna answer
are.
that? Okay, there
They
we go.
are. Don't fucking listen to clickbaity YouTubers.
Yeah, they're canon. You don't gotta like them, or they don't have to be your own head canon. Like the good thing about canon is it's all made up anyway. All the only thing that canon really refers to is whether they're gonna be taking it into consideration when they're making more stories, and they will be, or they won't be, or But officially, yeah, it's part of the
Yeah.
canon.
There is no secret war where actually Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are taking over Star Wars and having gunfights with Kathleen Kennedy every day in the hall. It's not fucking happening.
That would be epic. But
Kathleen Kennedy is a producer. She like greenlights productions or not. She's not like involved in writing this stuff and upset that Mandalorian's doing well. Like she's just as involved in that.
What I will say is, while that isn't happening, I do think some of the response to episode 8 and episode 9 in particular probably did change the way things were being made. Like I do think this, for better or for worse, Marvel style storytelling that they're going to start using is probably a response to, partially, I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened, but I do think that may have played a role into why these TV shows are being made the way they are. And
yeah, I think the biggest thing it had an impact on is going to TV shows over the movies that they were doing. Because originally there was an announcement of like, it was a bunch of movies that were being put out, and then that kind of morphed into a lot of these TV shows. But like the idea that Dave Filoni is heavily involved in planning story stuff now is not new. Like that is what he's been doing all the fucking time. He did Rebels and the Clone Wars. That is kind of what his role always has been.
Yeah, I do also kind of lament, like, I do wonder whether we're not going to get, like, I don't like a lot of parts of The Last Jedi. I don't like, my main problems with the sequel trilogy come down to world building more than anything else, and the actual plot rather than, like, the story it tells. I do kind of wonder whether they will be more hesitant to make a more challenging Star Wars movie in the future, which kind of does have me a little bit sad. You know what I mean?
I don't think that'll be the case. Like, I think you can see what they're doing with TV shows, and it.
But I mean, like, The Mandalorian's not challenging. Like, I love The Mandalorian; it's one of my favorite Star Wars things ever. But it's not like, oh, your hero kind of fucking sucks. And I get why people don't like that plot for Luke, but it's like it's unexpected, you know.
Well, it's the same thing as the response to the prequel trilogy not just being what we got in the OT, where like there's that quote that's started going around again from George Lucas, where like I'm making this movie because it's the story I want to tell, and it tells the message that I want to tell, not necessarily because this is the movie that people want to see. And the result was like 15 years of people shitting on George Lucas, so he sold Star Wars. And the response to the sequel trilogy had a lot of the same elements of that, and a lot of the same response to people involved in creating it, like actors, writers, directors. And I don't think that part of the result of that is probably going back to stuff that is just safer. And hopefully that isn't going to stay the case for everyone. But I think that'll also partially come down to the choices of individuals within it. Because I think one of the things that you could point to with the sequel trilogy, though, is that one of my biggest issues with it are within JJ's movies, especially, being too safe and too precious with what he saw as like the Star Wars he was trying to emulate, where like the biggest negative thing people tended to say about Force Awakens is that I've just watched A New Hope again. And like my opinion coming out of Force Awakens was that, okay, depending on what we get after this, if I just watch Empire Strikes Back again, then my opinion of The Force Awakens is going to be lower. And if we get something else afterwards, and this is just the diverging point, my opinion's going to be a bit higher. But like, it turned out to just be
what
like
everyone thought too.
Yeah,
like, we all cringed when we saw the walkers in the first trailer.
Yeah, and like J.J. Abrams,
misleading.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like J.J. Abrams, like part of the reason that I don't like The Rise of Skywalker was some of these choices that JJ made that were kind of too precious with what he thought needed to be the elements of Star Wars, which were very specific things rather than just the messaging or the tone or whatever. It was like, no, the super weapon has to be this big Star Destroyer or this big Death Star, or the evil guy has to be Palpatine is back somehow.
But like,
And
what the fuck are you supposed to do after episode 8? Like, I get why people really love the movie, and like, well, like you said, the moments are so good, but what, it doesn't belong in the middle of a series, in my opinion.
well, you can tell, you can still focus on Ben's story a bit more and what the actual First Order is doing without, like, you can have some Palpatine influence. Maybe there's a better way that you can handle Palpatine. I don't think you need the Zeistons. Like, I feel like that can go. Like, you can tell a
Yeah.
lot of the same stuff, but
It's just like, it's the end of a series, and like, my main problem with episode 8 is not the Luke stuff, which I don't know how I feel about that. It's like the fact that it's supposed to be, it feels like it did a big reset on what's the final, like right before the final movie of the final trilogy. You know what I mean?
so what do you do in Ryan Johnson's position with Luke then? Like, you start off with the premise that Luke is not there. No one's been able to contact Luke for ages. Do you get to Luke and he's like, "Oh shit, I missed the call?" Or do you try to explain how things have gone wrong for him and he's reassessing what the role of himself and the Jedi and what these legends mean, uh,
Hmm.
versus just like, "Oh, I would have come earlier and fucking faced," like, he does the thing at the end of the movie that people say he should have done, which is face down the
Yeah.
entire First Order from fucking flow walking across the galaxy. But
Hmm.
if you're in the position where you have to write why is Luke inaccessible for the better part of like 2 decades, then part of it
But
has
it's
to
not
be,
just the Luke thing. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, and I don't know what else they do with Luke, and that's on JJ. Kind of, I mean, I don't know what George Lucas's plan was, 'cause a lot of that comes from Lucas's
it
original
was pretty
ideas.
much the same thing that Lucas was planning to do with it.
But okay, that's one thing. But they also kill Snoke. Like, I just don't see the clear direction for what you do in episode 9
Yeah.
after episode 8. Like, there's no resistance, because that's one thing about the resistance. Like, episode 8 defined the scale of the conflict,
Yeah.
because
No, I
it was
definitely
still,
agree with that.
so it's like, the fuck do you do after that point? Like, I don't know. Like, I really love the Yoda stuff, especially as like a dad with kids, like, and like the Luke stuff. Like, a lot of the, and the Star Wars is always about trying to get the real messages. Like, we're never gonna have our nephew who we may or may not murder because he's getting fucked by some evil space wizard. But it's like, there is messages there about, like, you know, how do you teach your kids and how do you do shit like that, which I really appreciate. But it's just like, what the fuck are you supposed to do with episode 9 at this point? I don't know. It's like, it's like, episode 9 is probably the worst Star Wars movie in my opinion, but it's like, I also don't know what I would have done.
I mean, I think there's, you could have it become more of like just a local personal conflict between Ray and
Mhm.
Ben on one side, and the fact that like the New Republic capital got annihilated. You need to build something,
Yeah.
so you could take it more in that direction while still dealing with the what's out there from the First Order, because you're essentially leaving a point in at the end of Episode 8 where you could basically have there's no organization to the New Republic. There's no organization to the from the end of Force Awakens, and there's no organization for the First Order from the death of Snoke. If you want to take it that direction, and uh, have it be kind of the fallout from that in a kind of galaxies and anarchy rather than just let's go kill
Mhm.
wrinkles again.
Yeah, it's just like, there had to be something, I feel like, in episode 8 to set up the story moving forward, because it's like, I remember walking to the theater after episode 8 and just thinking, like, what are they going to do now? Like, what do you do now? And it's
Mhm.
like, that has nothing to do with the Luke stuff, which a lot of people do focus on that as their main complaint about the movie, and that's, you know, a subjective thing. But it's like, there had to be, I don't know if Ryan Johnson, because he was supposed to do episode 9, so like,
Well, Colin Trevorrow was supposed to.
oh right, yeah, sorry, you're right, my mistake. Colin Trevorrow was supposed to do episode 9. I was getting confused because they asked Ryan Johnson to do it, from what we understand, and he said, I guess he said no. I don't know, but it's like, there's got to be some sort of hook moving forward, and without the hook, I think episode 9 struggles. But I don't even know how we got on that question, because the question was, why are the sequels not canon anymore, and they are. But the next one is from James, who asks, what is your favorite Star Wars what if? The only ones I'm really familiar. I don't read fan fiction. So the only what ifs I'm familiar with is the Star Wars Infinities comics,
Yeah.
and
And
those are all fun.
I'm not even that familiar with those, so I don't really have much of an answer there.
Those are fun. Read those. But yeah. Other than that, there are lots of fan fiction sites and whatnot. But I'm gonna skip this. Well, if the Empire put all of its resources to making more Eclipse and Sovereigns, the galaxy would have. I mean, that's what happens in Episode 9, and the galaxy revolts because they don't like the idea of all their planets getting blown up.
And they had a really, really fucking terrible design because it's just Star Destroyers, but bigger.
Corey, what is your favorite ship in Star Wars? Luca asks.
Recusant.
Yes.
The Recusant
Right.
is objectively the best Star Wars ship because it's spindly and fun.
I like the CR90. I think the CR90 is really cool design.
Ooh, we did. I don't know why I'm going back to this topic, but we did see what happens if you resolve the big bad very early on in the third thing in a trilogy or in the second thing in a trilogy with the Jedi Academy trilogy. And what you do is just make another Death Star, 3 more super weapons, and make a toddler fight a bird.
You know what's weird though about like the sequel trilogy is it had so many villains too.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially in the Force Awakens, you have Phasma, you have Snoke, you have Kylo Ren, you've got General Hux. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. You've got like some other First Order officers that you see pretty prominently. Yeah. Is there going to be season 3 of Mando? Windows guy asks, yes. What are your plans for 20? What rank am I in squadrons? Really fucking high. Do you think the B-Wing should have replaced the Y-Wing in the sequel trilogy and forward? They're different. Sorry, I'm just trying to get through. We're running out of time. I'm trying to get through many questions. Do you want to handle? Do you want to tackle some?
How hard is it? Prometheus is asking how hard, unusual, or how hard is it for someone to write a Star Wars story, basically as a fan story? Just write whatever you want.
If you mean how likely is it that it becomes canonized or something, the chance is literally zero because they won't even accept. There's like the whole issue if you send the fan work in and then it basically appears under Timothy Zahn's name,
that's
that could be trouble for them.
They
they don't even read them.
Can't read it, yeah. So, but for fan stuff, just write whatever you want, whatever you're interested in, and you can do whatever stories you want with whatever settings you want.
It's just as real as the real Star Wars. What are your opinion on Star Wars mini books? I'm not familiar with what Dan 23 means there. Do you know what he means by mini books?
Like short stories, I guess. Yeah, like a certain point of view kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like them. I love them, especially because you can tell a story without it being chained down to everything else that's going on. Nicholas says, "Oh, I'm not gonna say his last name because he asked me not to." When Thrawn in Dark Forces says Luke wasn't staring at Mara's blaster but at her chest, are you getting?
I don't remember or understand.
Yeah, don't remember that.
Why didn't the New Republic give support to the Resistance while they were fighting the First Order? They technically kind of did. A lot of people within the government were trying to disarm, but they were also filtering in forces to the Resistance via like Leia and stuff. It was basically proxy wars.
It was like a political,
had plausible deniability.
Yeah, no interest in fighting another big war. If you had to fight, if you had to fight a final order fleet with one of your own, what would you choose for your ships?
Sun Crushers. All Sun Crushers. Yeah. If we're gonna raise the
really
ridiculousness,
is gonna work.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Who's the most powerful Sith Lord in terms of pure force power? Jack is asking. I think Revan with max spec on Force Storm. You can if you get rid of the damage cap, then like in KOTOR 1 he's a bit nerfed because like there is the damage cap. But in KOTOR 2, I guess that means Mitra is more powerful than him. It's canon.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I was gonna say. Where did Ahsoka take her new crystals from, and why didn't she get new ones? I think that's covered in. I can't remember if they are new, like her white lightsabers. I can't remember if they are new. Yeah, they are. I don't know where she gets the new crystals from though. One of the Inquisitors. I think it's covered in one of the books, I believe. Because the white lightsabers are red ones, because you like bleed lightsabers in canon. I'm pretty sure a white lightsaber is like a purified red lightsaber. I think she gets them from Inquisitors. but I can't remember. My canon knowledge on stuff like that is like very, very
Yeah.
shit.
My Kyber knowledge is limited.
Shouldn't Obi-Wan be the ruler of Mandalore as he beat Maul in combat? I think part of that's probably a desire to be the leader of Mandalore.
Well, this just gets into wand lore and how exactly Harry was able to beat Voldemort, and we'll have to do a whole other episode on that.
That part was shit. Let's choose one question from Henry. You can go ahead and choose one.
What do you think they'll do with Cal Kestis? Will he return in Mando, a sequel to his game, and other TV?
I've been wondering that. I've been watching Star Wars Rebels like I know you have, and I've been wondering that. What do you think?
I think Fallen Order 2 is probably still going to be his next place he turns up, and I know that's
Definitely.
like a cop out, but like
Yeah,
a lot of these people get cast for these roles knowing that they also look like the person. So I feel like that was kind of done with an eye towards maybe having him, having Cameron Monaghan in something live action at some point. That's my conspiracy theory for the day.
yeah. No, I mean same thing with Janina, who played what's her name in Battlefront 2. Like, I think there was room for her. There's even been rumors that she's going to show up in something, which I'd be fine. I like. Her
I feel like she's
character.
going to turn up in Rangers, if anything.
Yeah, I can see that happening. So I said a lot because we've been downtime going between emails.
But I want those characters to be their Battlefront 2 models CGI'd in. Like I don't want. I know they look like they're live action, like they're actual
So
people.
you want
I just,
like Janina shows up and then they CGI like the face onto her?
no, so
Cal?
they're in a mocap suit, and like everyone else is live action. So like we've got just it looks like a normal episode of The Mandalorian or something. All these real people, but then there's just a few people who came from video games that have their Fallen Order Battlefront 2 model the entire time, and no one says anything about it.
I mean, they'd probably look as good as Tarkin in Rogue One. So we've got a question saying, this is an interesting one. Just a straight lore question. Do we ever see lightsaber blades just straight up snap? Like, I can think of a few cases in Legends where Luke breaks his lightsaber or a lightsaber is destroyed, but I can't think of any like times where it's just pure pressure causes one to snap. Can
Yeah,
you?
I don't think like either the hilt or the blade ever. I think this is specifically asking if like the blade ever bends or anything.
Yeah.
I think the closest we see is like when Tenel Ka's lightsaber explodes, where the hilt can't handle the power anymore.
Right.
I think that's as close as we get for that.
Probably have to like use like a magnetic field, or isn't it supposed to be a magnetic field that keeps the blade? I don't know. It's Star Wars physics. We'll talk about that soon.
Yeah. We should we maybe call that out at the end here?
Yeah, we'll do maybe like a couple more quick emails, and then we'll talk about the future. We've got some really exciting episodes coming up.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about Thrawn a few times, so I'll skip that one.
Are the humans of the Star Wars galaxy the same as we are biologically? If so, is there a history as to why humans came to the galaxy?
I mean, the Star Wars galaxy is. They say it's in the same universe, but like nothing works like in our galaxy like it does in the Star Wars galaxy. We seem to be the same biologically, though. But
yeah, like would we invade and then we'd be the Yuuzhan Vong because we're outside the Force?
yeah, I guess
Like
so.
this is never addressed, and it needs to be.
Do you think there are too many Star Wars shows or movies being made?
Depends how much they're spread out, because this is like we've basically got 5 years of content that are mostly miniseries being announced. So like the Obi-Wan stuff, even though it's a miniseries instead of a movie, it's like what 6 episodes that it's going to be. It's going to be about the runtime of a movie. So I think it's not quite as much as it seems, especially when you can have like
Yeah.
a season of a show with 25 episodes every year and people don't get tired of it. Like if Big Bang Theory can last for almost a decade and a half, then I think we're good.
Yeah, no. I think especially with if there had been I think Solo's an okay movie or even a good movie, but I think people get tired of that where it's like a whole movie centered around one character. But these shows that they got such potential to them, and yeah. John asks, this is an interesting question. Do you think we will see how/why the Empire stopped using clones in the Bad Batch? I think it's definitely possible. It seems to be in the era, and that is a distinction between Legends and Canon, because in Legends, clones were used for quite a while, but in Canon, they're phased out pretty damn quickly.
Maybe we'll see part of that. Hopefully. That seems like a good thing for the show to try to to tackle. Willie asks, if you got a call from Disney saying that you could bring any one character back from Star Wars Legends into canon, who would you pick?
Oh, you go first. I gotta think about it.
Talon Card.
Yeah, like I would say him thinking about not only which characters I really like, but who would
The
fit
role.
seamlessly into the universe.
Yeah, and a role that's kind of not super well filled right now.
Hmm. I love Corrin. I'd like to see him brought in.
I feel like we'll get a Corrin character that isn't
Mhm.
necessarily Corrin,
Mm-hmm.
but
It's like a force sensitive pilot. You think?
yeah, like that's definitely a story that we're gonna get, maybe even with Rogue Squadron the Rogue Squadron movie.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that Favreau, Filoni, and the whole team share a common goal in making the Star Wars universe more cohesive? And that's an interesting question because this does seem to come down largely to filmmakers because like JJ, like it depends how closely you want to work with the story group. They're there. But like this is the thing about like the Pablo stuff that's been happening. People act like Pablo is the one making The Last Jedi or making whatever else, and it's not. Like he's an employee, he's not an executive, he's not a filmmaker. It seems to be, and we see this in, episode 9, for example. The directors choose to what degree they work with the story group. It
Mm-hmm.
seems like Favreau and Filoni work with the story group a lot on certain things.
And Filoni's
Um,
like, is Filoni still part of the story group, or was he? I
I
thought he
don't
was
think
part
so.
of it.
I'm not sure, maybe, but yeah, this seems to largely come down to like these people are creatives, and I don't like it. It's the story group's role seems mostly, and this would be different for something like the High Republic. The story group's role seems more to help maintain consistency wherever possible.
Yeah, they're kind of
But
a resource, kind of like Leland Chi used to be, where
yes.
you could ask them these questions, they'll give you these suggestions, but there
Mhm.
are some projects that are kind of put higher in priority than other stuff,
Yeah.
where they're kind of given more free reign. And I feel like the sequel trilogy had
Mhm.
more leeway to just do whatever the director wanted to do. And I don't think like
Mhm.
JJ or Ryan was especially interested in like
No,
engaging with any
exactly.
novels that were out or whatever.
Which is funny because it seems like Colin Trevorrow totally was. Because
Yeah,
if you
I
read,
really wish we got Colin Trevorrow's episode 9. I feel like I would have liked
me
that
too.
more.
Yeah. I mean, we had the eclipse being broken out of Kuat. That's fucking sick.
Yeah, you used to have to get fucking forces of corruption for that shit.
Hmm. It is true. I will say, I've also heard stories of the story group being almost insufferable when it comes to things like video games and books. Like I've just heard that there's so many things that like Star Wars takes so long to approve things for games, and there's just like I just heard it can be miserable. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
which is
basically
funny
how
because
high
games.
profile is your project. The higher profile,
Mhm,
the more you're kind of given
yeah,
free reign. Because like if you get J.J. Abrams on a project and you tell him actually do everything we say about this minutia, that's probably not why you're hiring J.J. Abrams.
mhm.
Whereas if you're getting these newer authors, you're probably going to bully them a bit more. And I don't think that's very epic, but that's kind of why they're hiring the people they are.
Maybe one or two last questions. Do you want to
Yeah.
take this one from Game Over?
From Game Over, no, because I can't find it.
It's 2038. That was the time it came in.
Oh, I was one past. Sorry, I was. How exactly do dark side emotions work? Especially fear, because I was confused when I saw season 7 of Clone Wars. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. But fear on its own can't increase the power of the dark side user. Maul was terrified by Sidious, yet still lost to Ahsoka. She even mentioned how she isn't really fighting all that well. So how does it work?
It's just like I think it just comes to like headspace. It's like just increasing your power like doesn't mean you're going to win. It's like it depends how you're fighting. Like the dark side users are based on these negative emotions like fear and anger, and they each have their own drawbacks. And it's like with anger, you're constantly like you're always on the threat of losing yourself, like which is anger seems to be one of the. It also seems like they're all kind of inherently tied to each other,
Yeah.
like just like Yoda said, fear leads to anger. So it's like for Anakin, and part of the issue is too the whole the whole idea that dark side emotions make you more powerful is a fallacy, as Yoda explains in episode
Yeah.
5. It's a cheap way to become powerful, but there's always the threat of all these bad things happening.
Yeah, like the way that it's typically laid out, I think, is that by giving into these negative emotions, uh, with the light side argument would be that, well, you're kind of losing yourself and acting in a way that is going to be negative and deleterious to everyone else. But there's this metaphysical aspect to it where it actually shifts who you are and how you're going to act in the future, rather than just being bad on its own, like it would be if I got really angry and punched the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But to the dark side people, it's basically, no, punching that wall is who you are, and that's acting within how you actually are as a person. You're using all of your resources. That's how they would present it. And I think that's usually what it comes down to. If you're afraid, you're more likely to just like lash out in fear and anger. To the Jedi,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be very good. To the Sith, that is how you are going to accomplish your goals the best.
Yeah, it's the whole idea that the more you give into these emotions, the more they are consuming you, which is why like you're not even supposed to dip your toes in, because I'm at the point in Rebels where Ezra's dealing with that. It's
It's like, are you controlling your emotions, or are your emotions controlling you? And the dark side people would say your emotions are you.
Okay, I think maybe last question of the night. We've got one from Patrick who asks, this is a bit of a speculative question. Do you think Thrawn defeating the Grist will be the ultimate plot point for Ahsoka, Mando, Rangers? Or do you think he's already defeated them? I think he's kind of also asking whether we think the Grist will kind of be the new sort of Yuuzhan Vong, where they pop in and give Thrawn a reason for being the way he is. Personally, I don't understand what they were going for with the Grist.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like that's one case that shows the story group and kind of the lack of consistency. Whereas it seems like Timothy Zahn is writing a different Thrawn than show Thrawn, and like I don't think the Grist are ever going to go anywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you'll ever in Star Wars, despite what they say, I don't think you'll ever really have a whole show built around something that first started off in a book. And I think that also just makes sense. Like, that does kind of make sense too, because the audience for a Star Wars book is always going to be exponentially smaller than the audience for a Star Wars show. So it's like you risk alienating the much larger group.
Yeah, like the Grists are at most just going to be like what Thrawn's dealing with in the unknown regions, and then when he shows up in the shows, it's probably going to be more like Imperial Thrawn, because like Filoni seems to operate more off of like the OG Thrawn trilogy Thrawn, whereas Zan's kind of moved past that and developed in a different way. We talked about this a bit with the other Thrawn book, and I think we'll probably talk about it again in a couple months, because I think it's only a couple months until the second one comes out. So, but I guess that gets us into what we were going to talk about to close out the show, just kind of what's coming up soon. I know we missed out on a bunch of the emails still. Maybe we'll have to do another Q&A.
Well,
soon.
We got all the emails sent by regular podcast listeners.
Yeah.
Well, the emails that we're into now are coming from people watching the live stream, which I still appreciate, by the way, guys. So I guess if we don't get to your email today, or if we didn't get to your email, probably best to send one sometime after today, because I'm probably going to subconsciously lump all the emails we get today as live stream emails. So send one after today. Yeah, you want to talk about what we're talking about for the next, or you want to lay out what we're talking about for the next few episodes, Corey?
Yeah, so there have been some new releases that we're going to be talking about coming up. So next week, we are going to be talking about Light of the Jedi, which is the first of the High Republic books. We are going to have some guests, or we're trying to have some guests, depending on how scheduling works out. Should we say who they are so we can get people to... No, I don't want no one believing me.
No, I think they want to.
Yeah.
It only depends if their schedule... I think we can say who they are. They wouldn't mind, I don't think.
Yeah, so we are going to be trying to have both Alex from Star Wars Explained and Mark from the Templin Institute on for next week's. Because we've had Mark on the show a couple times. We've had Alex on the show a couple times. They're good friends. So I think getting them both on in the same place would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, getting him to read a Star Wars book is less common. So this seems like a good opportunity.
Seems like there's some divergent views as well.
Yeah.
As much as you guys think we're all cucks or whatever else, like it seems like there's some divergent views.
Yeah,
I
so
feel
that should be
I'm a lot
one.
more positive about High Republic than you are so far.
I don't want to get into the whole discussion yet, but
Yeah, okay.
it's not that I'm negative on it. It's just that I'm not as positive as Alex, and probably not as negative as Mark. So it's going to be a good continuum for us, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, we got nerds of different flavors.
The week after that, so that episode is going to be on the 14th, I believe. We're going to be back to our Thursday update. Unless it could just as easily be Friday. We're going to work out the scheduling with them. Tentatively, it's Thursday. We're going to do our best to plan it around them as the guests to make sure that we can get them on, because we do really want to get their thoughts on the book. But the week after that, or I think it is the week after that, it might be the following week. We're going to be having a good friend of mine from the Thrawn's Revenge development team, Evil Bob the Bob, who is a practicing astronomer or an actual academic physicist. So he's going to be coming on, and we're going to be talking a bit about the physics of Star Wars. So if you guys have any questions for Bob, we'll call this out at the start of the next episode as well. If you want to send them into tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com, we'll be talking about that for a whole episode. And going over what does and doesn't make sense.
Prepare your black hole jokes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we're talking about Dovin Basils the entire episode, if I can swing it.
The amount of power. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Do you have any background with? I guess you're a humanities student, so you probably don't know shit about anything worthwhile.
I took all the high school level hard science courses, and then I just went into history and poli-sci. So it was a waste of time.
I'm ripping on you being a humanities student when I'm a law
You're a fucking
student. Same thing. Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Lawyer.
Well, I know that I'm useless as well. So other than that, I guess once that's done, we'll probably return to Young Jedi Knights. I forget which book we're on, but I'm excited to get back into that. We'll probably make our way through that, and eventually we've got Thrawn, and then eventually, what do we have next for the main Legends run? Is it Dark Fleet Crisis?
No, we were
Callista.
still in the
Calista
trilogy, because I think it's Darksaber next.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so we've got a good mix of. We're going to be a little canon heavy for a while, I'd say, because we also have Alphabet Squad 3 coming out this year. We've got lots of stuff, and I think we'll probably talk about Rebels at some point as well, because we're both doing rewatches of that.
Yeah, so because we're basically, the plan that we're trying to do is the podcast should be back to every week now, or close to every week, and we're going to be doing the thing where we do like a topical episode, alternate that with a book episode, or sometimes the topical episode will be a comic book or something, because those are usually quick to read. We're trying to make sure that we can have a consistent schedule while still being able to do other stuff like spend time with our families.
They miss us. There are other High Republic books as well, and don't pretend our family loves us anymore after shit.
All right. Well, I think that's basically what we're doing. We've left Wasted Space hanging. We're gonna play some Star Wars Squadrons. Charlie's keeping him entertained right now, but
oh shit, it's 8:45.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Make sure to send your emails to tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com and leave some nice reviews on your favorite podcast platforms. Anyone who can work the word greasy into their review will have the chance at having their review read out on the next podcast episode.
Yeah, give us a nice greasy review.
Yeah, but we will be streaming some Star Wars Squadrons over on X2 and Corey Loses with fellow streamer Wasted Space, all-around cool guy. We're going to prepare for our entry into the new Squadrons League that's being started up. So, yeah, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.